I convene the March 19th, 2025 regular board meeting to order at 7 p.m. Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swister.
Here.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Here.
Karen Larson.
Here.
Liz Sullivan.
Here.
Vanessa Berry.
Here.
Debbie Bryan, absent. Josh Martin, absent.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 2 is opportunity for visitors to speak. Public comment is for the general public to address the board. Each person will have up to 5 minutes to provide public comment. Seeing none, we will move on to item number 3, which acknowledges that Trustee Martin and I, President Swistak, reviewed the February billings in March, and Secretary Sullivan and Trustee Berry will review the March billings in April. Agenda item number 4 is the consent agenda. Is there a trustee who wishes to pull something from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second? Can we read the motion?
Oh,
that's right, we have to read.
Oh,
Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda, which includes minutes of the February 19th, 2025 regular board meeting and executive session, the February 28th Treasurer's Board Investment Activity Report, Current Assets Report, Revenue Report, and Expense Report, and the March 19th payment of bills.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Larson, second. Discussion? Okay, Jackie, roll call, please.
Emily Swister.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Agenda item number 5 is unfinished business. 5A1 involves the capital improvement project and updates. Mark, would you please update the board?
No problem, and right on time.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Coming in hot. No, the BS project is underway, as we all know. It's taking a bit longer than they anticipated. They've been running into networking snags. They're still trying to troubleshoot that. They're not walking away. We did have a conversation, I had a conversation with them this morning. They are not seeing this as an unforeseen condition or an issue that is, I'll call it the responsibility financially of the library. They are continuing to work through it diligently on their own. That's good news. So I think we found at least a partner that is trying to get it done. Might be taking longer than we expected, but at least they're continuing to work. They've got 41 of 45 VAV controllers installed, but not all of them are working and talking back to the network the way they want them to. So they're troubleshooting that right now. They started and we're hoping to finish 1, if not 2, air handling units this week into next week, and then the following 2 after that. So it's still a few weeks out to being done, but they're in progress at least. Some of the troubleshooting has led to some recommendations. One that I did put in the board packet being the battery backup for select equipment. I think that's something we'll have discussions with them as we go through this, whether it's something the library does on its own or through a vendor. It can be discussed. These are basically plug-in type pieces that have a battery backup. You've probably seen them at your offices and homes and things like that. They're not expensive, but there could be a lot of them if you needed to put them in a lot of different places. So beyond that, we are still targeting, I'd say April, not the first week of April, based on the information I received today. I'd say mid-April for completion of that work. I think it will push at least 1 more week based on what Mr. McCarthy was telling me today. The other project, HVAC, is scheduled right now to tentatively start next week. That it's going to be behind the scenes, back of house work, basically setting up so that when the units do arrive, they're on order. When they do arrive, they can put them in real quick. I don't have the official date really firmed up from the discussion today on when those units will arrive. It's within weeks, it's not months, which is good news. And knowing that the weather's going to be changing, I think it's good to get them in earlier and allow them to start. I talked to IBS today, and they did not have a concern with one source, it's the HVAC vendor, starting early while they're still finishing up. But ideally, they'd kind of go back to back, but I think they're here together. They weren't concerned that there'd be an issue. So good news there as well. Beyond that, we're continuing to monitor progress, and we'll close these projects out. If there are any change orders that we need to entertain, I think there was one damper that had to be fixed or something like that. We'll look at that and make sure we evaluate and update the board as we go. Any questions?
Just to mention while you're here, there was, it said you spoke to them this morning.
Mm-hmm.
In the afternoon, there is one study room that has, does it have a box above? Like a VAB box?
It's in the like room adjacent to it.
Okay, so
but
like
yeah.
upstairs in adult services on the nonfiction floor, there's a literacy room and a study room,
Yeah.
next to each other. And above it, there's a box that's affecting one of the study rooms and it's making it very hot. So right now we have a, kind of an outer order sign, it's just not accessible sign due to maintenance, and they're gonna take care of that, or at least try to tomorrow morning. They worked on it, past their normal hours today because they couldn't find the solution. So I wanna let Mark know, that occurred later this afternoon, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that's gonna add to any delay, but they're having a really hard time trying to remedy that.
And not to get too technical, but they're currently thinking it's something to do with the way the controls, when the wiring is grounded, and how it, whether the connections are right or whatever else. So that's what they're troubleshooting, and it's basically like finding a needle in a haystack. So he didn't mention that particular instance this morning, but I talked to him maybe at 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
So,
it's just, they thought they could handle it right away, and then it just turned into something else,
Yeah.
and so they're gonna address it first thing tomorrow morning.
And the big thing from my mind was just making sure I point blank asked the question about the financial, if they're going beyond and they're continuing to work on things, as long as it's not detrimental to the library, I think it's okay. But we just wanna make sure that they weren't gonna come back to the library with a surprise bill and say, hey, we spent 2 extra weeks. And that was not at all the tone, which is good news.
Good. Does anyone else have any questions for Mark? Yeah,
Well,
Mark?
I'll wait, I don't know if I should wait until Assistant Director Savage's report. I wanted to ask about the boilers. And in Mark's report under B, number 2, capital planning for the HVAC replacements, we mentioned boilers. Does that coincide at all with our, what we're considering for our 10-year plan? You think this might happen sooner rather than later?
So.
Are we having an issue, or is it just a one-off?
So the issue with the boilers was the flame sensor, which detects whether the pilot light is on or off, which unfortunately was not part of what we had the engineers assess when they came out to figure out what we needed for the HVAC project. They were just looking at more of the mechanical side, like is the boiler sound? Like, are we seeing any water damage, seeing anything? This was more of an electronic issue, where the flame sensor then plugs into like basically a control safety box, and the pins on the flame sensor had failed. So this wasn't anything with the boiler itself, it was like the safety control box that was an issue. So we got, took us a couple days, but we got to the bottom of it, and the boiler itself was not compromised in any way.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe CCS and I will work on, if and when we need to replace whichever boiler for our 10-year plan when we get there. And we were gonna wait until after the survey to determine like costs for Kingston lot. So like once we meet as a strategic planning group, we look at the data for that, then we let CCS know, Mark know, like what came of that, then we can like plan out our 10-year as a whole.
How old are the boilers? We
Um,
have 2, right?
Yes.
One's a main, one's a backup.
Right.
They are old. I think they are
Yeah,
both getting to 30. Is that what it was,
Yeah,
Mark?
I want to say over 20
Yeah.
for sure.
But remember, they're like commercial boilers,
Right.
so they're meant to last longer,
longer.
but
And that's-
we'll eventually have to
Yeah.
replace.
The good thing is the type of boiler they are, what we were told by the engineers is that the parts are available. I don't know if you experienced any
Yes.
issues with it, but with the parts being available and the way they're built, you can get extended life out of them. So as long as you're not exceeding too many costs that are hitting that are high cost to fix parts, you can push it out.
No, I just wanted to know if there was
Oh,
any connection. That's great.
Great question. No connection, but
Okay,
still
good.
needed to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Marjorie. Any other questions before Mark leaves?
No?
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 6 is committee reports. 6A is finance. Nothing for that one, okay. 6B is personnel and policy.
And we'll be going over all of that tonight.
Okay, because we met last week,
On
the
Wednesday.
12th. Yep. Okay, thank you. 6C physical plans, nothing. And then 6D strategic planning. Our next meeting is April 9th at 7 PM. Director Weinstein, did you have anything to add to that?
I think I have a couple notes. Just wanted to mention that you mentioned the date. We will review the results of the online survey, which we received over 400 responses, which is really nice. I have not looked through them all or anything like that, but the survey closed. I've also penciled in a few focus group dates, and I received 4 trustees who are available on 4 different dates, which is like excellent. Thank you. So I don't need any more volunteers. We're good. I'm going to soon share how we're going to approach those focus groups, and it'll be very brief. It'll probably take a half hour of your time. But yeah, so after we meet on the 9th with strategic planning group, we'll go over the focus group results, the online survey results, and then we can then determine the direction for the Kingston lot, because we should receive some information from the online survey about that Kingston lot, because a couple of questions did revolve around that. And then we can then meet with Mark at the next board meeting and talk about those results, and then we'll be able to cost out that project better. That's all I wanted to say about that.
And then the focus groups, those are all before the next strategic
Yes.
plan?
Yes. It's gonna be a busy April, early April, yes.
Okay, agenda item number 7 is staff reports. 7A is the director's report. Director Weinstein?
Okay, so on March 5th, we had a partial power outage, and thank goodness we didn't have one today. It did impact the public and non-public lights, phones, and server room. Because the server room was affected, as I mentioned in my reports, no computers or phones were accessible. I contacted President Swistak, let her know, and we closed, and then we didn't open until power was restored. So long story short, we called ComEd, we had the electrician on premises, we alerted the public with signage on the doors. We also alerted the public via social media. We used hotspots to do that. I also contacted you with hotspots, thank goodness for hotspots. And we did confirm, and ComEd did confirm that it was a ComEd problem, it was their issue, due to damaged underground power lines. And Will is gonna follow up with them for any costs that were incurred with the claims department. See how that goes. So ComEd did send a generator out. They got us up and running, and we were open to the public at 12:30. And then at approximately 4 o'clock, we transitioned from the generator to regular power. And all that said is I have tasked my IT manager to cost out a server room generator. This is kind of a between for the next budget cycle. So it's between like a home generator and a commercial generator for the whole building. Getting something in between to power the server room will allow us to come back up to speed, at least if there's partial lights. We can open up to the building, and then all the computers and phones will work, and that will allow us that access. Having a full building generator is just beyond what we can afford. I mean, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if we could get a server room generator, we could be in better shape for these kind of situations. So that will happen, and you'll see that proposal or a proposed amount in the next budget cycle when we start talking about that. Okay, moving on to Hokusai activities. The library, in partnership with the Lisle Women's Club, is going to host a volunteer art project program to coincide with the village-wide Hokusai art experience. I've talked a little bit about this at every meeting, and more to come, but the project's going to utilize volunteer artists to create public art banners that will become a feature in the downtown in Lisle. And we will also have banners at Gallery 777 during June and July of this year. So the village is going to facilitate a kickoff event on May 24th in the downtown. And that kickoff event, I think I'm going to be a part of that. I'm not sure yet because we're not doing it here. But the banners that the volunteers create will like line Main Street. It'll also be part of the art experience that is near the fountain in downtown Lisle. And then again, we'll have some in the building and at Gallery 777. So the banners will be printed on a grayscale the banners will be printed on canvas with a grayscale hokusai image ready to color and paint. Residents can participate in the art project either by attending a program here on April 17th at 7:30, which I will facilitate, and I have a handful of Lisle Women's Club volunteers who are going to help me. And we're gonna post it to the public. And then there's another opportunity, if you can't make that date, we'll have unfinished banners available for pickup and drop off here until April 18th, and so I should have those unfinished banners sometime this week, hopefully. I'm also working with Lisle Elementary, Junior High, and High School to complete about 60 banners. So those art teachers are working with me. They're going to take some of the unfinished banners and have their classrooms also participate. So again, more information is going to come via the newsletter, and then you'll see a lot of social media on this too. So that's fun. And then speaking of the Women's Club, the Lisle Women's Club has generously donated $270 for the purchase of a bench for the south vestibule of the library. I collaborated with LWC committee members and selecting a bench that I think fits the south entrance aesthetic very nicely. And as you know, we currently don't have any permanent seating in that vestibule, so it should be very nice for patrons to come in out of bad weather and wait till we open for the day. And so, just FYI, back in 2008, the Women's Club donated the bench that now sits in the north vestibule. So, donating another bench is a very nice gift, and in fact, that gift just arrived. So it awaits having a donation plaque placed on it, so we had to wait for it to come so I could see, where we're gonna put it and how it could look. And so it's sitting in the admin office right now, and it's just very beautiful. So we wait for that plaque, and once we place it in the vestibule, we'll take a picture and post it to social media. So thank you, Lisle Women's Club. I have a couple of extra things I'd just like to apprise the board of since it is around the corner, and what I mean by is I'm talking about National Library Week. It's an annual recognition of libraries, librarians, and library workers, and it happens this year. It's going to run from April 6th through April 12th. And we'll have activities for all ages, as well as a special guest visit from Mouse from the book, if you give a mouse a cookie. So Mouse will be visiting us for a story time. And that happens at the end of National Library Week. We'll also have a library-inspired crossword puzzle to turn in for a chance for a prize. So that's for all ages, and as well as a pretty cool guessing jar that will appear in our lobby. So that's your tease for National Library Week, and again, you'll see more on social media and things like that. Speaking of National Library Week, there have been a few interesting and very nice exchanges lately I just want to share. You know that on our website we have a fairly new donation button. And we haven't gotten a lot of donations via that route, like we haven't really promoted it or anything like that, but occasionally we'll get a couple dollars, it's few and far between. And then sometimes people will say keep the change at like the circulation desk if they're paying for a book that they've just keep the change. So those things are all very nice, but recently we just got a $100 donation from someone using the website button. And then another person, and this all happened like within a week's time, which was interesting. Another person visited the library to pick up some of the tax forms that are available for the public. And he asked circulation if he could make a monetary donation. He's been living in the district. He was an older gentleman. And he just wanted to donate $10 because he knows how important the library is to the community, which was sweet. And then lastly, we just received a check for $200 because the patron treasured the library and she said it was really important in her life. So I have to say, without advertising for the donations or anything, we've recently seen a lot of monetary support for the library, and I don't know, it might be due to what citizens are seeing on the national front. So if you weren't aware, the current administration has recently issued an executive order to the courts to cut
the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And that is a federal agency that not only supports libraries in all 50 states, but offers grants and resources. So I don't know, who knows, maybe that's how we're seeing more support, but either way, we'll take it. We appreciate it, and it means a lot to us. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's my report.
Any questions for the director?
You may have mentioned this, Director Weinstein, but on the banners on the art project,
Yes.
will the library sponsor a banner? Will it be identified as created by the library? Is there some way we can, publicize that the library?
We can. I can have
Just a thought.
staff work on one. It's open to the public, but it's as I was mentioning to Trustee Sullivan, this collaborative kind of group of agencies and businesses working on Hokusai, the village has kind of shepherded this, but all of the separate agencies have kind of been working in their own way. So my goal was to have all of the intergovernmentals create one, as you're saying.
Together or separately?
No, separately.
Oh, okay.
That just never came to fruition, so it kind of morphed into this having an open program where anyone can come and do. But I like your idea, I think we could, for sure.
Do we have an artist club, like we have book clubs? Do we have specifically a group that?
We don't, but we do have programs that are very geared towards arts and crafts. So there is a crafts and coffee where you can bring any type of art and do. We also have like craft specific or art specific programs for people who are interested in that. But not like a book club that happens once a month.
Okay.
That's specific to just a type of art.
We could have a collaboration of some of the artists that have exhibited here, ask them if they're interested.
Yes, it's open to anybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or we could have the trustees create a banner.
You are welcome to take home an unfinished banner.
Mine would be a stick man, but
Well, they're already printed
Printed.
with grayscale imagery. So it's really color by numbers almost, where you
Oh,
fill in the
well.
blanks. You can be extra creative and add what you like, as long as it follows our guidelines, which I've created. So there's a waiver, there is a
Of
waiver
course.
that people have to sign, there's some standards that you can't go beyond, but, yeah, absolutely.
okay, thank you.
Fun.
Yeah, it might be worth bringing it up in the craft and coffee, because that's on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like quilters and embroidery being done there. That would be cool.
Well, the problem with, it's not a problem, it took a lot to, the village is purchasing the
Banners.
and getting the budget confirmed was a long road. And they're not that expensive, but it was really just confirming that this indeed would be purchased by the village at a certain time, and then it had to go to the printer. And, this all just occurred in the last week or two.
How big
So,
are they?
Sorry?
How big are they? The banners?
12 by 24.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not that huge. So it was hard to be able to communicate with the schools in enough time for them to participate, because I didn't know, like, how many are we getting? Are we getting them? Are they being paid for? It was very difficult. We finally did it, so a lot has occurred in the last 7 days. So.
And I'm assuming since they're gonna go in downtown, there'll be one on each, like double sided,
Yes.
like, so
One-
2 different ones together,
Yes.
right back to back.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, it should be fun.
Any other questions for the director? Thank you. 7B is Assistant Director's Report. Assistant Director Savage.
Thank you. All right, so we've still been having our meetings with Bywater Solutions about the Aspen overlay. Those are ongoing. We still have several of them until we implement, but they're going well. LaForce came out for a couple issues. LaForce is the company that was the sub who did all the locks during the renovation project. So they came out and looked at one set of locks for me, and they're also looking at the youth services door is having some issues with the opener, and they're going to be able to procure a new chip. Figure out it was a defective chip in the opener, procure a new one, have it installed, so we should have the youth services door back to automatic, hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks, depending on when they can get the new part. As Mark mentioned, IBS is still doing the BES side of the project. They've run into a few hurdles with different cold in one room, hot in another, all that jazz, but that's kind of to be expected when they're reprogramming the air handler units that are responsible for pumping air throughout the building. But as Mark said, there may be tops a week behind schedule, but they're working on it and everything's under control as of now. It also, they had to do a little extra work in here. During the power outage, there was an actuator in the box in meeting room A that ended up being fried. So that is going to go on my claim with ComEd once I get the invoice from them for the replacement for that part. Terrence, the electricians, were also out. The first was twice. The first was there was a VAV box on the second level that in order to access, I had to have them move or reroute some conduit that was blocking the way. The way it was set up was to get up through the ceiling and get over to the box, there was just a long metal pipe that was right in the guy's way, so a human could not sneak through. So we had them come out and move that conduit for us. And then they also came out on that day that Tatiana mentioned we had the power outage. They're the ones who were able to pinpoint the fact that it was not an us issue, it was a ComEd issue. So then we were able to relay that information, tell them exactly what's going on inside the building to ComEd, so it was very helpful. And then one source came out to help us with the boiler, which we already talked about a little bit earlier, and then they are also, as Mark mentioned, coming out next week to start on their half of the HVAC project. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions for the assistant director? Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to item number 8, which is new business. 8A is to approve LLD policy 720 investments. May I have a motion and a second, and then the director can walk us through the draft.
I move to approve revisions to LLD policy 720 investments.
A second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Director Marcy.
Okay, so as usual, trustees have the strikeout version and a clean version for easier reading for all the policies. And I think the Personnel and Policy Committee did a great job refining my edits to the existing policies. And you'll see those in the either blue or green, I can't tell which one I use. But on the blue-green over the original red strikeouts we had before. So policy 720 was last updated in 2018. I'm just going to summarize what the committee already did. Tammy Olszewski, our investment advisor, worked with me on the policy and updated the language. She also made other organizational recommendations for the policy. And the major changes include the removal of the finance manager. We don't have that anymore. We used Tammy's better terminology. We made sure that we included credit unions and included the Sustainability Act that she suggested we include in the last Finance Committee meeting. We also consolidated the internal controls and reporting references into one category, and in conclusion, we let the public know where they can find investment documents each month and reiterated that the library conducts an annual audit. And that is my summary. Any questions?
So looking through it, 3 of us were on that committee
Right,
and were at the
that's
meeting.
why I don't have any
So,
questions, but
Karen or Liz, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I read through them and they looked fine.
Lot of work.
Yeah.
So any further discussion on LLD policy 720? Okay, Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swister,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
aye.
Karen Larson,
Aye.
Liz Sullivan, Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, thank you. 8B is to approve LLD policy 200, Board of Trustees bylaws. May I have a motion and a second, and then the director will walk us through that.
I move to approve revisions to LLG policy 200 Board of Trustees bylaws.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Director Weinstein?
Okay, so these were last updated in 2020, and this came about when President Swistak mentioned that one of the board policies referenced accessing certain areas of the library that are no longer in the same orientation they were before the renovation. Since we were looking at one board-oriented policy, we looked at both. And the bylaws got a lot of formatting changes, as you notice. We omitted all of the articles to better match the other policy formatting. And items A through L were clarified and at times consolidated. We affirmed our official name and address. Our rules and procedures were better outlined. And we referenced the ALA Bill of Rights and also highlighted the resolution the board passed supporting the ALA Bill of Rights. And that is my summary, unless there's specific questions to what you see in the draft.
I'll say again that the three of us were on the committee, so we were involved in this discussion just last Wednesday. So really, we're looking for feedback. From Secretary Sullivan, Treasurer Larson,
No.
anything?
I mean, nothing. A lot of work you guys did.
Okay, any further discussion then on LLD policy 200? Okay, Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swistak.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, motion passes. Okay, so the next up is 8C, to approve LLD policy 201, Board of Trustees Code of Conduct and Ethics. May I have a motion and a second, and then the director will walk us through that draft as well.
I make a motion to approve revisions to LLD Policy 201, Board of Trustees Code of Conduct and Ethics.
A second?
Okay, motion and a second. Director Weinstein?
Okay, so this was last time it was updated in 2019, and there weren't a lot of changes here. The board policy, this board policy was the one that referenced trustees having codes to get into the admin office instead of having key cards that we have now, so that was changed. And then we further clarified items under the board authority category and added an option for someone else to pick up trustee materials if permission was given, like in an emergency or for that matter. There were some couple word changes there, but outside of that, not a lot of change.
So again,
No, I don't.
Treasurer Larson, Secretary Sullivan,
No.
anything with that one? No. Okay. Any further discussion from Vice President Bartelli or Trustee Berry?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swistak.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. And then 8D is approve LLD policy 325, schedule of fines, fees, and financial transactions. May I have a motion and a second, and then the director will walk us through that draft.
I move to approve revisions to LLD Policy 325, fines, fees, and financial transactions.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Director Weinstein.
Okay, this one was last updated in 2020. Again, it's formatted to match our other policies. We did some rephrasing here, but the major change here was to eliminate the $5 processing fee for materials that are lost and damaged. So to explain that, when you reprocess something, it does come with the cost of staff time and supplies, but it also falls under what I told the committee, under the category of the cost of doing library business. We process materials all day, whether they're replacing things or whether they're new materials. So we felt like we didn't want a need for additional costs for this library work that we do every day, and we felt like just charging the patron for the material, what the library pays for the material was sufficient. And then there were just a few other clarifications to some language, like using the word streaming and downloading versus just using the word digital, just to further clarify some of the language in the policy.
Any further discussion on that one? No? Secretary Sullivan?
No.
Okay. All right. Then Jackie, please call the roll.
Emily Swistak.
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli.
Aye.
Karen Larson.
Aye.
Liz Sullivan.
Aye.
Vanessa Berry.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Then we will move on to item number 9, which is the opportunity for trustee comments. I will start with trustee Berry.
I wanted to say that I really like the new website design. Like we've had it for a few months, and like whenever I pull it up, I feel like I'm finding, it's easier to find stuff, and I feel like it highlights our collection better. Like finding the databases and that kind of stuff. I'm excited every time I open them. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. This is so much better than it was before. So,
Glad to hear
good
that.
job.
Great, thank you. Okay, Vice President Bartelli.
I'd just like to say thank you to the Personnel and Policy Committee. It was a great job, good meeting. And also on the power outage. I never missed a beat, but I'm not here that often, so good job. Thank you.
Treasurer Larson.
Nothing at this time?
Okay, Secretary Sullivan.
I just want to thank the Personnel and Policy Committee. That was a lot of work, a lot of details. And policies seem to be all consistently written. How they're presented is really good too. So thank you, everybody. Since 3 of you are all sitting here and you're on the committee, thank you very much for your work.
And then I will go last. I just wanted to reiterate what Director Weinstein said about the recent donations to the library, and I wanted to thank the patrons who made those donations, so thank you for that. To echo Trustee Berry's sentiment about the website, every time I pull it up, I'm always like, ooh, the colors. I really like the colors, so that in addition to the user-friendliness of it, but the colors. And then I did catch a glimpse of the bench this earlier today when I was in the admin office, so I'm looking forward to seeing that, the donation from the Lisle Women's Club, once it is upstairs in the south entrance. I'm looking forward to that as well. And then other than that, I have nothing else. So last item on the agenda is to adjourn. May I have a motion and a second?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:37 p.m.